Hello, my friends. The purpose of this video is to kind of give you some of the crochet basics and go over from the very beginning how to get started. This series is going to be for right-handed crocheters, so I'm so sorry if you're left-handed. It's simply a little different. We are going to start with how to hold your hook and hold your yarn, and then we're moving on to chain, slip stitch, single stitch, half double, and double crochet. So that sounds like a lot in one video, but I really think that it'll be worth learning, and it's a long one. Worth sticking around. All right, my friends, let's get into how to crochet. So I'm using this yarn, and just a reminder from my last video, look here, I am using a size 4 yarn, and then this recommends a size 5 hook. So that is what I am using. When you look at the yarn, it's going to have two ends. So this is the center pull. It pulls from the center. The main downside to pulling from the center is sometimes you accidentally pull out this ball. Personally, that doesn't bother me, so I do it anyway. And so then here's the end. The other end is going to be from the outside somewhere. I don't really want to take the label off to find it. But there's another end somewhere, and if you use that one, it just kind of unravels from the outside. So you're either starting from the inside or from the outside. Once you have the end of your yarn, make a slip knot. And to do that, I'm so sorry about this setup. I'm doing my best. Anyway, take the end of the yarn and kind of bring it below the yarn itself, and then bring it up like it's crossing to make a loop right here. Pinch where the end crosses the working yarn, which is just the yarn that you're using in the project. Put your fingers in the loop from behind the loop and grab the working yarn and pull it through that loop. Once you're holding the working yarn, pull, let go of the cross and pull the tail until it gets tight around the yarn. And that is your starting knot. So then, again, from behind the loop, pick up your hook and insert your hook into this loop that you made. And then pull the working yarn until the knot is tight on your hook. So now you have your tail and your working yarn connected to your hook. Your next step is chaining. But before we get to that, you need to hold your yarn. So how I hold my yarn is I put the working yarn over my pointer finger, under my ring finger, under my middle finger, over my ring finger, under my pinky. So over, under, over, under. If your yarn keeps dropping off your hand, just because it feels weird at the beginning, you can wrap your yarn around your pinky once, and that kind of helps you hold it on. So this is your setup. And then to begin your chain, which is the beginning of your project, hold with your middle finger and your thumb the tail really close to this knot, just to kind of give you some support. And that kind of gives you the ability to use your pointer finger to pull up on the yarn to put a little bit of tension in it. And then that will cause the tension in your stitches. So if I were to be pulling really, really hard, my stitches are going to be really tight. Hold that thought. That may have sounded confusing so far. So to create your chain that you're going to start your project in, you're going to take your yarn, bring it behind your hook and in front of your hook so that it wraps around it once. And then you're grabbing that tail. You're grabbing the working yarn that you just put around the hook. That was yarn over. So the yarn over is this motion. You're grabbing it with the hook part of your crochet hook and pulling it through that loop that's on your hook already. And you have one chain. To do another chain, same thing. Bring this yarn from behind the hook to in front of the hook, yarn over, holding the tail, grab that yarn and pull it through the loop that's on your hook. So now you have a new loop on your hook. So that's 2 chains. So this is chain. You can stop after a couple. Actually, let's do 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have a chain of 10. After chain is slip stitch. So what we're going to do for slip stitch is insert our hook into the second loop from your hook. So if you look at this, your chain kind of looks like a braid. When you hold it with the chain on the left of your hook, the top loop that you see is what we're working into right now. So you're inserting your hook into the second one from your hook. So there's the one on your hook, then the one that the yarn is currently coming through, then the one that we're going to insert into. Oh goodness. So again, the one on the hook, the one that the yarn is coming through, then the one that we are inserting our hook into. So one loop will be on top of the hook, and then if you look from the back, it has these bumps on the back. The bump and the bottom loop are underneath the hook. So you insert it into that loop, grab your yarn again. Oh goodness, okay. Yarn over, just like you did with the chain. Pull it through that first loop that's on your hook, and then also pull it through the second one. So you are just inserting your hook into the loop, yarn over the hook, and then you're pulling the yarn through both loops on your hook. And then just like we were pinching the tail down here, we're now just holding the project with this hand, however it's comfortable for you. So insert hook into the next loop, yarn over, pull through the first loop, pull through the second loop. Insert your hook into the loop, yarn over, pull through, pull through. Do this all the way to the end until you get to this last loop before the knot, and then I will meet you there. So that is slip stitch, and I just thought that that was important to learn because that a lot of times is how you join projects together. I'm not going to do a second row of slip stitch, but that is how you do it. So you yarn over and pull through both loops. Now I'm going to pull on my working yarn, and that's just how you undo stitches if you ever need to and you want to redo them. So if you see, it kind of stretches the chain a little bit so you can see where we put our hook. And then once I undo the last stitch, we are back to our chain. Actually, I think I undid some of the chains. But this is how you get back to your chain if you need to, and how you frog your project. So like if I made a mistake in that row and then I kept going and I wanted to come down, I would just pull the yarn until the spot where I wanted to start from. And then that'll undo your slip knot as well. Now that you know chain and slip stitch, let's move on to single crochet, because while slip stitch is important, single crochet is something that you're probably going to use a lot more. So do the same slip knot from before and the same chain. So again, insert your hook from the back side of the loop and pull the working yarn. chain. Let's do 10 again. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so for single crochet, we are inserting our hook into these loops again. So the loop on the hook, then the one that the yarn is currently coming through, then the one that we can go in. So if we chain 10, the one that the yarn is coming through counts as one of those chains. So if we want 10 stitches, you have to chain an extra. That basically is acting as like the starter of your row. So if you want 10 single crochets, you need 11 starting chains. And I feel like that'll make more sense in a minute. So once you have 11 chains total, we're going to insert our hook into the second loop from the hook. So the one on the hook, the one it's currently coming through, and then the one we're going into. So we are currently working in to the 10th chain. If we had not done the extra chain, we wouldn't have been able to pull through. The yarn would have just kind of fallen off of our hook. So once we've yarned over, pulled through, so once we've pulled that loop through, we yarned over, pulled through the loop that was on our hook, the first one. Now instead of pulling through the second one as well, we're going to yarn over again and now pull through both loops on our hook. And that is a single crochet. So we're going to insert our hook into the next loop, yarn over, pull through the first loop on our hook, yarn over, pull through both. Insert our hook into the next loop, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. So do this all the way to the end. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. And this is what those stitches will begin to look like. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull through the first, yarn over, pull through the second. Yarn over, yarn over. So I did my last single crochet into the last chain before the knot. So now you did a row of single crochets. And there should be 10 of them with a chain over here. So now that we have this row, if you think about it, the 11th chain put you on the level that you needed to be on to make these stitches. So it kind of rose your hook a little bit to be able to go back and work in. So that's what we're going to do to make another row of 10 single crochet. We just did our last one. So the loop on our hook is coming out of our last stitch. So we cannot go back into that last stitch while our yarn is still there, which is why we chain one and turn our work to start the next row. So that's all we did. We finished that stitch by chaining one and then turned our work so that we can continue to do single crochets. From the top of the stitches, it kind of looks like the chain. So this first one that we have is the chain one that I did to finish this stitch. And then these two loops together make our first stitch. So when you're inserting your hook into that, you are making sure that you are going underneath both of those loops. So I have both of them on my hook. And then it's the exact same. Yarn over, pull through those 2 loops, but really it's the one. So you're inserting into the chain or into the stitch, and that stitch is a loop on your hook. So we just yarned over, pulled through the stitch. Now we yarn over, pull through the 2 loops on our hook. So again, insert into the stitch so that you have both of the stitches loops on top. Yarn over, pull through the stitch, yarn over, pull through both loops on your hook. Going right there, making sure you have both loops. And so I'm just doing this so that you can see it. You don't have to double check every time. Yarn over, pull through just the stitch, yarn over, pull through both. And that is single crochet. So I will meet you at the end. I don't know why I didn't do this before, but I'm going to take this stitch marker, and I just finished the 2nd row of single crochet. I've not done the chain 1 at the end yet. And I'm going to put the stitch marker in to the very last single crochet, like where my hook would normally be, and just lock it into place. If you don't have these, no big deal. I just thought it would be a good visual. Okay. So now I have a stitch marker in my last stitch. So that's where the yarn is coming from right now. I'm chaining 1, turning my work, and then inserting my hook into where that stitch marker is. Yarn over, pull through the stitch, yarn over, pull through both. So now I had just worked in to where that stitch marker was. If you need help seeing where the stitches are at the beginning, don't be afraid to use these. I do think that they can be helpful. I don't really use them anymore, but they can be great for making sure you're picking up what you're supposed to be picking up, or just marking numbers, whatever you really want. So that is the first single crochet of that row. And now that you've gotten single crochet, feel free to keep trying it until you feel confident about it. So my 2 rows look pretty good. And that's because of my tension. So tension, people talked about tension all the time, and I never knew what they were talking about. So tension, as far as I know, is basically how tight you're pulling on the working yarn as you're creating stitches with it. So like you have it, oh goodness, you have it wrapped around your fingers so that it's not just like doing whatever it wants, and that you have a little bit of control, and you're pinching your project to give you a starting point. So if I'm pulling like really hard on this stitch, it's going to look really, really tight. So I'm pulling, and then I pull through this stitch, and I'm still pulling really tight. That's going to make this loop really tight. And then I yarn over and I pull through, and maybe I pull again, and then pulling that will like tighten the whole stitch. And you can kind of see that it looks a little pinched compared to my other ones. So that's really tight tension. And then loose tension would be if I'm just holding it with my hands but not really doing much with that. Inserting my hook into the stitch, yarn over, and just pull it through without doing anything to it. Yarn over, pull through both. And now this stitch looks pretty big compared to that one. And you can really tell with how big this loop is and you can barely even see it here. So loose tension is if you aren't pulling on this yarn at all, or basically filtering it through your fingers as you're using it. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with either one. Like right now I'm doing loose. It will just change the appearance of your stitches. So when people are talking about that, that is what they're talking about, is how tight you pull the stitches. To help you figure out how you're doing with the tension is if you are also following what this label says right here. Again, we're not knitting. So this part where it tells you to use a 5mm, this is also giving you a gauge of how to tell if you're using the right hook size. So for an average tension, this yarn uses a 5mm hook. If you do rows of 12 stitches, so you chain 12, chain an extra, do 12 single crochets, that's SC, single crochets, and did that for 13 rows, the size of that square should be 4 by 4 inches or 10 by 10 centimeters. So you can work 12 stitches back and forth 13 times. And if it's 4 by 4, your tension is pretty average. If that square for you is smaller, that means you have a tight tension and your stitches are coming out small. If your square is bigger, your tension is loose and your stitches in your final project is going to be bigger. Now that I have finished my 3rd row of single crochet, again, do this as many times as you need until you feel confident with it. I'm just going to do these 3 rows, and now I'm going to show you half double crochet. So at the end of the row, half double crochet is also not that tall. So you're going to chain 1 at the end of your row, turn your work like we normally do. And so again, we're working into this stitch right there. This is the chain that gets us up ready to work. So we are working into this stitch. To make your half double, you're going to yarn over before you insert your hook. So now looking from the front, it looks like you have 1, 2 loops on your hook. Once you've yarned over, insert your hook. You can hold the loop on if you need. Insert your hook into the stitch just like we did with single crochet. Yarn over, pull the yarn through just the stitch, just like with single crochet. And now you are going to have 3 loops on your hook. For half double crochet, once you have these 3, you yarn over and pull this yarn through all 3 of those loops. So again, working into this stitch now. Yarn over from the front to the back. Insert your hook into the next stitch. So now you have 2 loops and the stitch on your hook. Yarn over, pull through just the stitch so that you have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through all 3. So you can kind of tell the difference. So there's 1 extra loop in a half double, and it's right at the beginning. Yarn over to create a second loop. Insert your hook into the next stitch. Yarn over. Pull through just the stitch. Yarn over. Pull through all 3 loops. I use this stitch a lot, so this is definitely one that I would recommend working on until you feel like you have it. And the tension is pretty much the same across the board. Once you feel good with your tension with single crochet, you should be good to do half double. One more time. Yarn over. Insert your hook. Yarn over. Pull through just the stitch. Yarn over. Pull through all 3 stitches. Loops. So that is a row of half doubles. And I was able to do it on our single crochets because the top of crochet stitches always look like that chain that we did. So no matter what you're doing, when you're inserting your hook to complete a simple stitch, you are just going in underneath those top 2 posts. So even though half double is a little bit bigger than single, it doesn't matter what the foundation stitch looks like to your next stitch. So the chain is the project foundation, and then every row of stitches builds off of the row before it. So we're yarning over, inserting the hook, yarning over, pulling through the stitch, yarn over, pull through all 3. And that is half double. Once you've practiced your single crochet and your half double crochet, the next stitch to learn is double crochet. So I did my last stitch on this row, which was half doubles. And now that we're doing a double crochet is the height of 2 stitches. Double crochet, makes sense. So we need our hook to be 2 stitches tall to be able to work a double crochet. So we chain 2 at the beginning of our row to finish off that half double and to get us tall enough to work a double crochet. So if we're looking from the top, we have our last stitch and then 2 chains and then the loop on the hook. Turn your work like you did before. And we're doing exactly what we did for half double with the stitch. So we are yarning over before we insert the hook. So you yarn over, insert your hook into your first stitch, count your chains if you need to, yarn over, and pull through just the stitch. So now you have 3 loops on your hook again. This is where this is different than half double. So for double crochet, you yarn over and you pull through only the first 2 loops. And then you come up. So now you have 2 loops again, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Double crochet. So again, working into this next stitch, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through the stitch, yarn over, pull through 2 stitches, 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Again, into this stitch, yarn over, insert into this stitch, the next one, yarn over, pull through just the stitch, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. So if you remember when we were doing single crochet, you would insert your hook into the stitch and pull through, and you would have 2 loops on your hook. Now you have 3, but you make the single crochet motion twice, which is why I mentioned that double crochet is 2 stitches tall, because we're yarning over and pulling through 2 loops, which is the height of a single crochet, and then we yarn over and pulled through the second set of 2 loops, which is the height of another single crochet. So double crochet again, yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over, pull through just the stitch, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through both loops. Finish this row. All right, you guys, you learn slip stitch, which will be important for your craft later. And then you learn single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. So once you feel like that makes a little bit of sense, let's move on to the beginner project. How the beginner project is going to look is we are going to make a scarf. I kind of mentioned it in my last video, but sometimes like Big Twist Value yarn at Joann's tells you how many skeins you need for a scarf. So you only need one of them. It shouldn't be too difficult. I'm going to be using this Karen Jumbo ombre yarn in this really pretty green and blue color, which is what I use to go over the beginning stitches. And I am still going to be going over the stitches again as we go through the scarf, but I wanted to do a rundown of the stitches themselves before we began so that you knew what stitches to expect as we go. The first part of the scarf that we're going to do is single crochet, and then we're going to do half double, double, and then single, half double, double. And then really, I'm going to keep going like that, but you could do whatever you want. So, meet me back for a scarf. It's going to be fun, I hope.